This is Me Before Mom, the podcast that helps moms stay connected to themselves while doing the most important job they'll ever have. And I'm your host, Bert Anderson. Hey, this is Bert Anderson, and you are listening to Me Before Mom. Before I get started, I have to do a quick little shout out and thank you to my friend Rihanna, who currently is watching my youngest, almost 4-year-old daughter, along with her pack of 4 children, which actually brings me to the topic of today, which is asking for help. I know. You probably are like, Bert, I ask for help. I have no problem asking for help. But do you really have no problem asking for help? Because I know I have a really big problem asking for help. Whenever I have to find childcare, because, I work from home. Whenever I have to find childcare, not child hair, that would be funny, huh? It's hard for me, as much as I would like to say like, oh yeah, I can totally ask for help. It's really hard for me to ask another mom in particular. And I always try to go the route of asking another friend with the intentions of paying it forward or paying it back. So they say to me, hey, can you watch my kid? And I have no problem doing that. Like, it's like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. But when it comes time for me to be like, hey, do you think you could watch my kids? It's not anxiety inducing because I don't think I'm an anxious person, but it is anxiety inducing because I keep thinking like, oh, I don't want to ask them because it's really going to put them out. And, I don't want to put any stress on them. So, and it's even worse if you have a baby, because I remember feeling the same way when my kids were really little. It was like, oh, it's too much. What if he cries all day long the whole time that he's with them? I can't put that on another person, and nobody can feed him because I'm the only person who can feed him, and nobody can change their diapers the way that I can change their diapers. And so it's just like this perpetual thing of like, nobody can do it. I have to do it all. And you literally drive yourself mad because you get no breaks and you feel almost like you're on this island alone and you're not, because, going back to what I said before, if my friends asked me to help them out with anything, I almost feel honored that they asked me for help. So don't you think that your friend feels the same way when you say, hey, I'm really struggling with this right now, or I need this favor? I mean, don't you kind of feel like, hey, yeah, I can totally do that for you. Thank you for asking me and trusting me. There's like this give and take of trust that you are offering that person and saying like, you know what, I trust you enough to help me out with this problem and help me out with my kids. But getting to that point, how do we get to that point where we are willing to actually let others help us? So I think a lot of things have changed. I've talked with my mom about this a lot, especially when I was a first-time mom. I was really, struggling and just feeling really lonely and isolated. And I remember saying to her, like, what did you do when you were a mom? Because my dad was in the Navy when I was 2 years old. My sister, she was like a month old, and my mom flew from Bemidji, Minnesota, all the way over to Okinawa, Japan by herself with a 2-year-old and a 1-month-old. And I look at that because that's like it's like a half a day of travel with little tiny children. And I'm like, how on earth did you do that? She asked for help. There were people on the plane who were willing to help her with me and entertain me. And that's part of how she did it. And then when she was in, Okinawa, she was on a military base thousands of miles away from her family. So she didn't have that sense of, oh, I'll just call my mom and they'll come over and they'll help me out. The military, being on a military base in a community, forced her to reach out to other women to ask for help. And they all did it. They all supported each other. And I think that we've kind of lost that in today's world because we feel like we have to take it on and we have to be super women. And you hear people say all the time that like showing that you're vulnerable and asking for help actually is like stronger than trying to shoulder all the responsibility on your own. But how often do we actually follow through with that and practice that? It's a hard thing to do. I mean, I definitely struggle with it. You know, my husband and I, the way we parent, we're very much a team. And when he's an accountant, and so usually like the last 6 weeks of tax season, he's like non-existent and not there. And the last 2 to 3 weeks of tax season, I am kind of at my wit's end. My kids are sick of me. I'm sick of them. Ask me how many times I reached out to friends and said, you know what, I need your help because I'm losing my mind. Zero times. I would rather sit and stew in my house on Facebook and tell the world how miserable I am than pick up the phone and call one of my friends like Rihanna and say, hey, I need your help. Can you help me? Because again, if I actually chose to do that, I know that in a heartbeat, it would be met with, of course, like definitely. But there's this vulnerability and this trust that goes along with asking people for help. And there's a part of me that wishes that we all lived in a military base setting because the sense of community is just unlike any other. You know, everybody is, you know, you have spouses, you know, one parent who is, you know, sometimes deployed, most of the time deployed, and the families just really come together and they bond and they are just this cohesive unit working together. And why can't we make that happen? You know, think about your friends and think about the people that you would trust, you know, your kids with, or think about the people who you would trust your vulnerability with. Those are your military, so to speak, family. That's your community. You know, there's a lot of talk about tribe and what's your tribe, and it's more than just being like, oh, you're my tribe. And we're going to go and we're going to do fun things like shopping and we're going to go have mimosas. Like I look at who your community is and your tribe, so to speak. And those are the people that you know will have your back, no questions asked. You know, if you're really struggling during tax season, I'm really struggling, I should be able to call up somebody like Rihanna and say, you know what? I really need your help. I need your help. And she would say yes. I know she would say yes because I would do the same thing for her. So how, and we can take this conversation off of the podcast too and talk about it out in the Twitter sphere and Facebook land. But how do you, I think it starts with us. That's how we make this community happen. You know, I mean, you look at like the, you know, housewives in the 50s and the 60s, the sense of community that they felt. Now, a lot of that's changed because a lot of us are working and we're working away from the home, but there's no reason why your neighbors can't help you out. My neighbors, both, you know, the dad works in Mankato once a week, and they have asked if their daughter can come over to my house in the mornings and after school and walk to school with my kids. Yeah, totally. It's not putting me out. I'm just adding one more kid into the chaos that is my house already. So it really makes no difference. And I'm honored that they trust me with getting their daughter to and from school. And that is what a community and a neighborhood is. But it has to start with you and me. And I'm saying this in like a convicting way because I'm convicting myself as well. Like I think that we have to show our kids that we can ask for help and other people can help them and other people can help mom. It's okay. It's really okay. And if we want, I don't want for my kids when they're parents to feel like they're all alone and isolated and and nobody is there to help them unless I'm around, I definitely don't want that to happen. You know, my family lives 6.5 hours away from me. It's not possible for my mom to come over in an afternoon and watch me. And maybe you live in the same town as your family and there's just not a great relationship there to begin with. So who do you have that's supporting you? And where can you go when you need help? That is the part I think we all have to like focus on it and make it a priority to open up and be vulnerable and trust other people with our vulnerability and our shortcomings. I mean, really, that's what this is about. It's a pride thing. Like, we don't want to say, hey, I need help. I don't want to say it. I'll say it on Facebook. I'll vague book about it all day long. So you ask me, what's wrong, Bert? What's wrong? And they'll be like, oh, nothing. Nothing's wrong. Yes, something's wrong. Of course something's wrong. I wouldn't write this vague Facebook message, vague book it out in the world for nobody to see. Instead, what I need to do is I need to pick up the darn phone and call a friend. Please come help me. It can be something really, really simple as, what are you doing tonight? Do you want to go for a walk? I feel lonely. There's so much, I think, there's just so many ways that we isolate each other. And so what I'm calling you to do, and I'm calling me to do, is to create the community that we want our kids to live in. And I think we can all agree that we want our kids to live in a community where, you know, if I'm running late, my kids know that they can go over to my neighbor Sarah's house. And that's totally fine. And it's not shocking. And I don't feel this sense of guilt that I've asked for help. And it's not even guilt that I'm putting on them, but it's guilt that I am not able to do it all. Because you're not able to do it all. Nobody can parent on an island alone. So that's the important thing that I want us all to think about. And like I said, I'm convicting myself of this because when the going gets tough, I can talk about it like, you know, when it's nice and easy, but when I'm struggling, I'm kind of like, whatever, I can't do this. And I'm not going to ask anybody for help. But let's start asking for help, because it's an honor when somebody trusts you with their kids and they feel the exact same way about you. So be kind to yourself a little bit in this. Take the weight of your parenting world off of your shoulders. Be kind to yourself and ask for help. That's all we have. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to connect with me on bertmanderson.com and please visit our website, matriarchdm.com, for all of the show notes and to hear other awesome podcasts.